The great chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Ambassador Velcris walked to the center platform. His tall, thin body moved with the grace of someone who had lived for 3 centuries. The chamber held representatives from 400 different species, and all of them turned to watch him. Velcris belonged to the Thaline Concordat, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. His people had traveled between stars for 40,000 years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched hundreds of new species join the galactic community. But today, Velcris came with a warning unlike any he had given before. "Honored members of the Council," Velcris began, his voice carrying through the chamber's translation systems. 10 years ago, we detected a new species achieving faster-than-light travel. As is our custom, we observed them before making contact. What we learned troubles me deeply. A holographic display appeared above the center platform. It showed a blue and green planet, beautiful and vibrant. Earth. The humans called it. "This species calls themselves humans," Velcris continued. "They come from a world that our scientists classify as a Class 12 death world." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Most species in the galaxy evolved on gentle worlds, with stable climates and moderate gravity. Death worlds were rare. Very rare. "Let me show you what this means," Velcris said. The display changed, showing images of Earth's surface. Massive storms that could destroy cities. Earthquakes that split the ground open. Volcanoes spewing fire into the sky. Oceans with waves tall as buildings. This is their normal environment. Humans evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most of us within hours. The display shifted again. Now it showed various Earth creatures. Great cats with teeth like knives. Massive bears that could tear through metal. Tiny insects that carried deadly poison. And worst of all, bacteria and viruses invisible to the eye, but capable of killing millions. "Look at their evolution," Velcris said quietly. "Humans are persistence predators. Do you understand what that means? On most worlds, predators are stronger or faster than their prey, but human ancestors were neither. Instead, they simply never stopped chasing. They would follow their prey for days, weeks even, until the target collapsed from exhaustion. Then they would claim their kill." Commander Zathon of the Krellian Empire stood up. He was a large being, covered in thick, armor-like skin, representing a species that had dominated 3 sectors for 5,000 years. "Ambassador Velcris, with respect, we have heard enough. You show us images meant to frighten children. These humans made peaceful contact with us 6 months ago. They offered trade and friendship. They seem quite harmless." "Harmless?" Velcris's voice carried an edge now. "Let me show you their history." The display changed again. This time it showed human cities burning, armies clashing with primitive weapons, then more advanced wars with guns and explosives. Finally, images of mushroom clouds rising over cities, weapons that could destroy entire populations. In their most recent global conflict, they created weapons capable of ending all life on their planet, Velcris said. And they used them. Twice. On themselves. Yet within 70 years, they went from those weapons to achieving faster-than-light travel. They are driven, brilliant, and utterly relentless. Yes. Yes. Zathon waved a dismissive hand. Many species have violent pasts. We Krellians were warriors once too, but we evolved past such primitive behavior. These humans will do the same, now that they have joined civilized society. Velcris felt a chill run through his body. This was exactly what he feared. "Commander, you misunderstand. I am not showing you this to demonstrate that humans are violent. I am showing you this to demonstrate that they do not think like us." He pulled up another image. It showed a small human vessel, clearly damaged, floating in space. 6 months ago, during their first deep space voyage, this human ship suffered catastrophic failure. Their oxygen system broke. Their crew had perhaps 10 hours of air remaining. Do you know what they did? The chamber waited. They did not surrender to fate. They did not accept death peacefully. Instead, they took apart their entire ship, piece by piece, looking for a solution. With only minutes of air remaining, they created a repair using parts from their food synthesizer, their personal devices, and the captain's artificial leg. It should not have worked. But it did, because humans do not stop trying until they succeed or die. A resourceful species, another council member said. This is a good thing, surely. You still do not understand, Velcris said, his voice heavy with frustration. In the galaxy, most species evolved as prey animals or herd creatures. When faced with overwhelming threat, our instinct is to submit, to negotiate, to flee. It is why our conflicts end quickly, why we have maintained peace for so long. But humans evolved as both predator and prey. They have no submission instinct. When threatened, they fight. When cornered, they fight harder. When defeated, they retreat only to attack again later. He looked around the chamber. I am not saying humans are evil. I am not saying they want to harm us. In fact, I believe they genuinely want peace and friendship. But I am warning you that if we treat them as we treat other species, if we assume they will react as we would react, we will make a terrible mistake. Commander Zathon laughed. It was a booming sound that echoed through the chamber. Ambassador Velcris. Ambassador Velcris, I believe your age is making you cautious beyond reason. You want us to fear these newcomers because they are different. But the Krellian Empire has successfully integrated 73 species into our territories. We know how to deal with emerging civilizations. That is precisely my concern, Velcris said quietly, but the damage was done. Other council members began speaking, and most agreed with Zathon. The humans seemed friendly. They had offered no threats. Their technology was impressive, but not dangerous. Surely Ambassador Velcris was being too cautious. The vote came quickly. The council rejected Velcris's recommendation for a wide quarantine zone around human space. Instead, they voted to welcome humanity with open arms and treat them as they would any new species. Velcris sat down slowly, a deep sadness settling over him. He had tried. He had shown them everything, but they could not see what he saw because they had no reference for it. They looked at humans and saw themselves. They could not imagine a species that would choose to fight when surrender was logical. Far across the galaxy, Captain Park Min-jun stood on the bridge of his ship. The Horizon's Promise. He was looking at the latest message from the Galactic Council. Humanity had been granted full trading rights and diplomatic status. His crew was celebrating. Park smiled. This was what he had dreamed of since he was a child. Humanity, finally part of something bigger. They would trade, learn, and grow alongside hundreds of other species. The future looked bright. He had no idea that at this very moment, Commander Zathon was reviewing reports on human colony worlds, looking for an opportunity to demonstrate Krellian superiority over these newcomers. He had no idea that his people's greatest strength was being seen as their greatest weakness. And he had no idea that within months, the galaxy would learn exactly what Ambassador Velcris had tried to warn them about. The price of that lesson would be paid in blood. Commander Zathon's warship emerged from faster-than-light travel above the human colony world of New Sol. He looked at the planet below with satisfaction. It was a young colony, barely 15 years old, with a population of only 50,000 humans, perfect for his purposes. Open a channel to the surface, Zathon commanded. Within moments, the face of Governor Kim Seo-yeon appeared on his screen. She was a middle-aged human woman with short, dark hair and calm eyes. She looked at him with polite curiosity. "Commander Zathon," she said. "This is unexpected. We were not informed of any Krellian visits to our system." "That is because this is not a visit, Governor," Zathon said smoothly. "I am here to inform you that New Sol now falls under Krellian protection and authority. You will lower your planetary shields, Prepare a tribute payment equal to 30% of your annual production, and accept Krellian oversight of your government. He expected shock, perhaps fear, maybe even anger followed by quick negotiation. Instead, Governor Kim simply looked at him with those same calm eyes. "I see," she said quietly. "And if we refuse?" Zathon smiled. He had done this 73 times before with other species. The script never changed. "Then I will be forced to demonstrate Krellian military superiority. I have 15 warships in orbit. You have no military vessels at all. I strongly suggest you accept our generous terms." "I need time to consult with my people," Kim said. "You have 48 hours, Zathon replied. He cut the transmission, confident in the outcome. In his experience, 48 hours was more than enough time for any reasonable species to recognize reality and submit. What Zathon did not know was that the moment the transmission ended, Governor Kim activated every emergency system in the colony. Alert signals went out across New Sol. Hidden transmitters sent messages toward Earth and other human colonies, moving faster than any Krellian could detect. And the people of New Sol began to prepare. Lee Junho had been a soldier once, back on Earth. He was 60 years old now, running a small farm on the edge of New Sol's main settlement. When the alert came, he felt something he had not felt in 20 years. The cold, clear focus of combat. He went to his basement and pulled out a case he had hoped never to open again. Inside were the pieces of his old rifle, carefully maintained, despite having no use for it on a peaceful colony world. His hands moved automatically, assembling the weapon with practiced ease. By the time he walked outside, his neighbors were already gathering. He saw old soldiers like himself, carrying weapons that were supposed to be antiques. He saw factory workers with industrial tools that could be turned into something more dangerous. He saw teachers and farmers and shop owners, all with the same expression on their faces. "We got kids in the school," said Choi Min-so, who ran the local market. "My granddaughter is 7 years old. What are we going to do?" "We evacuate the children first," Lee said. There was no discussion, no debate. Everyone nodded. "Get them to the caves in the northern mountains. They'll be safe there. Then we prepare to make these Krellians regret they ever heard of New Sol." Across the colony, similar scenes played out. The spaceport engineers began fortifying their positions and hiding equipment. The medical staff converted their hospital into something that could handle combat injuries. The few scientists in the colony started analyzing every piece of Krellian technology they could access, looking for weaknesses. Governor Kim watched it all from her office. She had sent the evacuation order for children and essential personnel. She had also sent detailed messages to Earth, explaining the situation and asking for help. But she knew help might not arrive in time. A message appeared on her screen. It was from Ambassador Velcris of the Thelene Concordat, transmitted through secret channels. "Governor Kim," the message read, "I tried to warn the Council about this possibility. The Krellians do not understand your species. They expect you to surrender when faced with superior force, because that is what 90% of galactic species do. They have never fought a war that lasted more than a few days, because their opponents always submit quickly. If you resist, they will escalate, expecting you to break. Please understand that from their perspective, they are not being cruel. They simply cannot conceive of a species that will not surrender when logically defeated." Kim read the message 3 times. Then she composed her reply. "Ambassador Velcris, thank you for your warning and your advice. Please understand that from our perspective, they threatened our children. Logic no longer applies." 48 hours passed quickly. When Commander Zathon opened communications again, he expected to see a defeated Governor Kim, ready to discuss terms. Instead, he saw the same calm face as before. "Have you made your decision?" he asked. "We have," Kim said. "New Sol rejects Krellian authority. We ask you to leave our system peacefully." Zathon felt a flash of irritation. This was unusual, but not unprecedented. Some species needed a demonstration before they understood reality. "Very well," he said. "I will target your spaceport with orbital weapons. This will show you that resistance is futile. Surely you do not want unnecessary destruction." "Commander," Kim said, and for the first time, Zathon heard emotion in her voice. "You are about to make a terrible mistake. I am giving you one last chance to leave peacefully. Are you threatening me?" Zathon almost laughed. "With what? You have no weapons, no military, nothing." "Accept reality, Governor." Kim's expression hardened. "You wanted to see what a death world species looks like when you threaten our children. You are about to find out." She cut the transmission. Zathon sat back, genuinely puzzled. He had never encountered such stubborn refusal to accept obvious truth. Well, a small demonstration would fix that. He ordered his weapons officer to destroy the spaceport. The orbital bombardment lit up New Sol's sky. The spaceport, with its landing pads and control towers, disappeared in fire and smoke. Zathon watched with satisfaction. Surely now, they would understand. But instead of surrender, he received another transmission. This time, it was not from the governor. It was broadcast on all frequencies, from the surface of New Sol to every ship in the system, even toward nearby Krellian space. It was Li Junho who spoke, his old face calm and determined. "To any humans who can hear this, they attacked our home, they threatened our children. New Sol calls for aid, but if aid does not come in time, we will show these aliens what it means to fight Earth's children. We will make them pay for every meter of ground. We will make them remember New Sol forever." And then the old soldier smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. Today, the Krellian Empire learns why humans do not surrender. Zathon stared at the transmission in disbelief. They were still defying him? After seeing his power? It made no sense. "Commander," his tactical officer said nervously, "I am detecting movement on the surface. The humans appear to be fortifying positions?" "Then we go to the surface," Zathon said. "Prepare 10,000 troops for ground deployment. We will occupy their cities, and they will learn to obey." As his troops prepared, Zathon felt confident. His soldiers were well-trained and well-equipped. The humans were just colonists, farmers and workers with no military experience. This would be over quickly. But far across the colony, in hidden positions that the Krellians had not detected, Li Junho and thousands of others waited. They checked their weapons. They reviewed their plans. And they thought about their children, safe in the mountain caves. The Krellians were about to learn something that Ambassador Velcris had tried to warn them about. Humans were not like other species. They did not have an instinct to submit when threatened. Instead, they had an instinct that had kept them alive on a death world for millions of years. When cornered, when their families were threatened, when they had nothing left to lose, humans did not surrender. They fought, and they did not stop fighting until they won or until they died. The first Krellian dropships descended toward New Sol's main settlement. Commander Zathon watched from orbit as his 10,000 soldiers deployed in perfect formation. They were the pride of the Krellian military, trained and equipped for any situation. Against 50,000 unarmed colonists, they should have been overwhelming. The dropships landed in the central plaza. Krellian soldiers emerged, their armor gleaming, their weapons ready. They expected frightened civilians. They expected chaos and panic. Instead, they found empty streets. "Where are they?" Captain Thex asked, confused. He led the first ground unit, 500 soldiers sweeping through the main street. Every building seemed abandoned. No lights, no movement, nothing. Then the first explosion came. It was not sophisticated, just industrial mining charges connected to a simple timer. But it brought down the building on the corner, and the rubble blocked the street, cutting Thex's unit off from the main force. "Contact!" A soldier screamed. From windows, from rooftops, from underground positions, The humans opened fire. They did not have military weapons. They had hunting rifles, industrial tools modified into guns, and construction equipment turned into cannons. But they knew how to use them. Captain Thex raised his shield, confident in his armor. Krellian technology was superior. Human weapons could not penetrate it. Then a human appeared on a rooftop, holding what looked like an industrial welding torch modified with some kind of pressure system. The jet of superheated plasma hit Thex's shield and punched right through. The captain fell, wounded but alive. His soldiers moved to protect him. But that was when the second wave hit. Humans emerged from sewers, from basements, from hidden tunnels. They were young and old. Men and women. Some looked like soldiers, but most looked like ordinary people. And they fought with a ferocity that the Krellians had never encountered. Lee Jun-ho led a group of 20 defenders through the factory district. They hit a Krellian patrol from 3 sides simultaneously. The aliens were stronger and better armed, but they froze when attacked. They looked for orders from their officers. They waited for tactical analysis. Humans did not wait. "Move! Move! Move!" Lee shouted. His people flowed like water, hitting hard, and then disappearing before the Krellians could organize a response. They left behind damaged equipment and confused soldiers. Across the colony, the same pattern repeated. Krellian forces advanced, found themselves cut off and ambushed, took casualties, and retreated to regroup. They were winning by the numbers. Their armor was better, their weapons more powerful. But every victory cost them, and the humans never stopped coming. Commander Zathon watched the reports with growing alarm. His forces had secured only 30% of the settlement, and they had already lost 400 soldiers. Not killed, but wounded, or captured. And more disturbing, the wounded Krellians were being treated by human medics and returned under flags of truce, along with polite messages from Governor Kim asking for peaceful withdrawal. "They offer us our wounded back?" Zathon said in disbelief. "While they fight us? Sir," his intelligence officer said nervously, "I have been analyzing their tactics. The humans are following something called the Geneva Conventions. It is an ancient human code for warfare. They believe in rules, even during combat. Rules." Zathon could not comprehend it. "They ambush us from civilian buildings, use improvised weapons, and fight without proper military structure. But they follow rules? Rules. Different rules, sir. Human rules. In the Galactic Council chamber, emergency sessions had been called. Footage from New Sol was being broadcast across the galaxy. Most council members watched in horror as humans fought with what seemed like insane determination. "Look at this," one council member said, pointing at a video. It showed a human woman, clearly wounded, still firing at Krellian positions while 2 others dragged her to safety. She should surrender. She should seek medical help. Why does she keep fighting? Leverly. 1. She should surrender. 7. 1. Ambassador Velcris stood up slowly. "Because you are not watching criminals or fanatics. You are watching mothers and fathers, grandparents and neighbors, fighting to protect their children. You are watching what happens when you threaten a pack-bonding species family. But they cannot win," another member protested. "The Krellians have superior numbers and technology. This is suicide." "No," Velcris said quietly. "This is humanity. They know they might lose. They fight anyway. This is what I tried to warn you about." On the surface of New Sol, Governor Kim worked from a hidden bunker. She was coordinating defense, managing resources, and keeping track of casualties. The numbers were bad. Very bad. 3,000 humans wounded or dead. But they had stopped the Krellian advance. A message came through on the emergency channel. It was from Captain Park Min-jun. "Governor, this is the Horizon's promise. We are 6 hours out with a fleet of 47 vessels. Hold on, we are coming." Kim felt relief flood through her. But she also knew 6 hours was a long time. She sent orders to all defense units: conserve ammunition, rotate fighters to prevent exhaustion, and above all, keep the children safe in the mountain caves. In orbit, Commander Zathon faced a decision. His ground forces were stalled. They could win eventually, but the cost was climbing. And now, his sensors detected human ships approaching. Not military vessels, but civilian ships, cargo haulers, mining vessels, even a few luxury yachts. They are going to attack us with cargo ships? His tactical officer asked in confusion. Prepare to intercept, Zathon ordered. But something in his mind was starting to worry. These humans did not think like any species he had encountered. They did not follow logical patterns. The human fleet arrived in a scattered formation. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Promise, looking at the 15 Krellian warships between him and New Sol. All ships, he transmitted. Remember, we are not trying to destroy them. We just need to get through to our people. Use speed. Use asteroids for cover. Use anything. But get through. The human ships scattered like startled birds. They were fast and maneuverable, and their captains flew with a creativity that the Krellian tactical computers could not predict. One cargo ship used its loading boom as a weapon, slamming it into a Krellian vessel's sensor array. A mining ship deployed its ore grinders, forcing Krellians to dodge or take damage. It was chaos. It was illogical. And it was working. 3 human ships made it through the blockade and began landing supplies on New Sol. Medical equipment, food, ammunition, and more people. Volunteers who had come to help defend a colony they had never even visited. Choi Min-seo, the old market owner, watched as the supplies arrived. She was covered in dust and had a bandage on her arm, but she was still fighting. A young man stepped off one of the ships, carrying a medical kit. I am Kang Dongwu, he said. I am a doctor from Earth. Where do you need me? The hospital is 3 blocks that way, Choi said, pointing. But it is not safe. Krellians control the next street. Kang smiled. Ma'am, I came from Earth to a war zone. I think I can handle 3 blocks. He ran toward the hospital, dodging through rubble and smoke. Choi watched him go and felt something fierce and proud in her chest. This was humanity. Strangers coming to help strangers. People fighting for those they had never met. This was why they would win. Commander Zathon sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display. His forces were taking a Krellian settlement, block by block. But the humans had been reinforced. The fighting was intensifying, and his soldiers were sending reports that troubled him deeply. Sir, the humans are not breaking, one officer reported. We wounded one of their fighters badly. He could barely walk, but he refused to surrender until his squad escaped. Then he surrendered and thanked us for treating him with respect. Another group sang while fighting, another officer added. Even when we had them surrounded, they sang together. It was unsettling. Zathon realized the truth he had been avoiding. This was not going to end with human surrender. It was going to end with every human on New Sol dead, or with Krellian withdrawal. There was no middle ground. These people did not have a breaking point, and for the first time in his long military career, Commander Zathon understood fear. He was fighting an enemy that could not be beaten by logic, by superior force, or by time. He was fighting an enemy that would rather die than submit. He was fighting humans. Governor Kim stood in her bunker, looking at the tactical map of New Sol. Red marks showed Krellian positions. Blue marks showed human defensive lines. The map was a mess of overlapping colors, showing just how chaotic the fighting had become. Governor, said her tactical advisor, Jung Hae-in. We have been analyzing Krellian combat patterns for 3 days now. I think we found something important. Governor, Kim turned to listen. Jung had been a military analyst before retiring to colonial life. If he found something, it mattered. The Krellians fight with perfect coordination, Jung explained, but it all comes from centralized command. Their soldiers do not make independent decisions. When we cut off their communications or eliminate their officers, they become confused. Some even surrender immediately. So they lack initiative, Kim said slowly. Exactly. They are like a body that cannot function if the brain is damaged. They are strong, as long as command structure is intact. But if we hit all their command posts at once, Kim looked at the map again, seeing it with new understanding. They would lose coordination across the entire battle zone. Yes, and without coordination, I believe many will simply stop fighting. It is their instinct when command breaks down. Kim made her decision. Send word to all units. We coordinate an attack on every Krellian command post simultaneously. We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we make them lose their structure. The message went out through hidden networks. Every human fighter in New Seoul received the same order. In 6 hours, attack the command posts. Every single one. At the same moment, Lee Junho gathered his team in an abandoned warehouse. They were tired, dirty, and some were wounded. But they listened carefully as he explained the plan. We have 6 hours to get into position, Lee said. The Krellian command post for this sector is in the old community center. They have it heavily defended. We are going to walk right in. How? Asked one of his fighters. A young woman named Park So-young. Lee smiled. We are going to surrender. The team looked at him in shock. Then, slowly, they began to understand. We walk in with white flags, Lee explained. They take us prisoner. Following their own rules of war, they put us inside their command center. Then, when the signal comes, we stop being prisoners and become very big problems. It was risky. It was dangerous. It relied on Krellian honor to treat prisoners properly. But it was also the kind of insane plan that just might work. Across New Seoul, other teams made similar preparations. Some planned to use the old tunnel systems to approach from below. Others would create distractions, while assault teams moved in. Still others would simply rush the positions with everything they had, counting on human determination to overcome Krellian defenses. In orbit, Captain Park Min-jun coordinated with the other human ships. They had lost 12 vessels breaking through the blockade, but the remaining 35 were now organized into something resembling a fleet. We cannot defeat those warships in direct combat, Park said during the fleet-wide conference. But we can keep them busy. When the surface teams hit the command posts, we hit the Krellian flagship. All of us. From every direction. We make Zathon worry about his own ship, instead of coordinating the ground battle. It was agreed. The human fleet would attack in 6 hours, at the exact moment the surface assault began. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Velcris stood before a gathering of representatives, showing them footage from New Seoul. But this time, he was also showing comparative footage. Watch this Krellian squad when they are cut off from command, Velcris said. One screen showed Krellian soldiers stopping in confusion when their officer was wounded, then surrendering within minutes. Now watch this human squad in the same situation, Velcris continued. The other screen showed humans whose leader had been killed. They did not stop. Instead, someone else immediately took command. When that person fell, another stepped up. They fought on. Do you see the difference? Velcris asked. Krellians are organized, efficient, and powerful. But they need structure. Humans are chaotic, stubborn, and independent, but they do not need anyone to tell them to keep fighting. Every human is a leader when necessary. One council member spoke up. But Ambassador, the Krellians are winning. They have superior numbers and technology. Why should we worry? Oh, Velcris pulled up another screen. It showed casualty numbers. The Krellians have lost 800 soldiers in 3 days of fighting. Do you know how long their longest previous war lasted? 4 days. And they lost less than 100 soldiers in total. They have never fought anyone who would not surrender. He let that sink in. The humans have lost 4,000 people, but they show no signs of breaking. If this continues, the Krellians will either have to commit genocide to win, or they will have to withdraw. And genocide will turn every human in the galaxy into an enemy, including the humans in peaceful sectors who have done nothing wrong. The council members looked at each other nervously. Some were beginning to understand what Velcris had tried to warn them about from the beginning. On New Sol, the 6 hours passed. Governor Kim watched the countdown, her heart beating fast. This plan would either save them or doom them. There was no middle ground. When the timer reached 0, chaos erupted across the entire colony. Lee Junho and his team had been prisoners in the Krellian command center for 2 hours. They sat quietly, hands bound, while Krellian officers worked around them. The Krellians had treated them well, following proper protocols for prisoners of war. Then Lee's hidden communicator buzzed once. The signal. Now, he shouted. The team moved as one. Their bindings had been loosened hours ago, slowly and carefully. Park So-young grabbed a Krellian officer's weapon. Another team member dove for the communications console. Lee himself tackled the base commander. It was chaos. The Krellians tried to respond, but they were shocked by the betrayal. How could prisoners attack? It violated every rule of warfare they knew. But humans had different rules. Outside, other teams hit their targets. Explosions rocked command posts across New Sol. Krellian communications networks went dark. Officers shouted for reports and got only static. In orbit, the human fleet attacked Commander Zathon's flagship from 12 different directions simultaneously. They were not trying to destroy it, just distract it. Mining lasers cut into sensor arrays. Cargo ships rammed their loading booms into weapons ports. It was chaos. On his bridge, Zathon tried to coordinate the battle. But he could not reach his ground commanders. His ship was under attack from all sides, and reports were coming in that many of his ground troops had simply stopped fighting. Without orders, Krellian soldiers did what their instincts told them. They retreated to defensive positions. They waited for command. And many, confused and frightened, surrendered to the nearest human forces. The tide of battle turned in hours. By the time Zathon's communications were restored, he had lost effective control of the ground battle. His soldiers held isolated strong points, but they were surrounded, and the humans were not pressing attacks anymore. They were offering surrender terms. A transmission came through. It was Governor Kim. "Commander Zathon," she said calmly. "You have brave soldiers who were following orders. We have no desire to kill them. We will accept their surrender with honor, treat their wounded, and return them to you. All we ask is that you withdraw from New Sol and never return." Zathon looked at her face on the screen. She was tired. There were bandages on her arm, but her eyes were steady. "You attacked while under flags of truce," Zathon said. "That is dishonorable." We attacked military targets while detained in military facilities," Kim corrected. "Check your own records, Commander. We never claimed to surrender permanently. We claimed to be prisoners, which we were, until we decided not to be." There is a difference. It was splitting hairs, but technically correct. And Zathon realized something else. The humans had planned this from the beginning. They had studied Krellian tactics, found the weakness, and exploited it with perfect timing. They had outthought him. "Why did you not just kill us?" Zathon asked quietly. "You could have. When you attacked the command posts, you could have killed everyone inside." "Because we are not trying to destroy you, Commander," Kim said. "We are just trying to protect our children." There is a difference. And in that moment, Commander Zathon understood what Ambassador Velcris had tried to warn the Council about. Humans were not monsters. They were not mindless warriors. They were a species that could be both ruthlessly effective in combat and compassionate to defeated enemies. They were something the galaxy had never encountered before, and they were terrifying precisely because they were not cruel. 3 days after the battle ended, Commander Zathon stood in Governor Kim's office. It was a small room, damaged by the fighting, with temporary repairs holding the walls together. Kim sat across from him, and between them lay the surrender documents. "The Krellian Empire will withdraw all forces from New Sol," Zathon read aloud. We will pay for reconstruction of damaged facilities. We will return all captured equipment. And we will formally recognize human sovereignty over all claimed territories. He looked up at Kim. These are generous terms. We invaded your world. We killed 4,000 of your people. You could demand much more. We could, Kim agreed. But we do not want vengeance, Commander. We want peace. Your soldiers were following orders. Many of them showed honor, even in combat. We treated your wounded. You treated our prisoners well. There is no reason this conflict should continue. Zathon signed the document slowly. As he did, he asked the question that had haunted him for days. Governor, why did you keep fighting? You knew you would lose in the end. We had more ships, more soldiers, better technology. Logic said, you should surrender. Kim smiled sadly. Commander, you made a mistake that Ambassador Velcris tried to warn the Council about. You assumed we think like you. When you are faced with overwhelming force, your instinct is to submit and negotiate. It is a good instinct. It keeps casualties low. It makes sense. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at her damaged colony. But humans evolve differently. When we are faced with overwhelming force, our instinct is to fight, not because we are stupid or violent, but because for millions of years on Earth, submission meant death. The predator that cornered us would not negotiate. The storm that destroyed our home would not accept surrender. The disease that killed our families would not make deals. She turned back to him. So, we learned to fight. Always. Even when we would lose. Because sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible happened, and we survived. And over millions of years, the humans who never gave up had children, and the ones who surrendered died. Now, we are all the children of the ones who never quit. Zathon felt a chill. So when I threatened your colony, your children, you triggered every instinct we have, Kim finished. You could have offered us wealth, technology, anything. But the moment you threatened our children, negotiation ended. All that mattered was making you leave. And we would have fought until every last one of us was dead to make that happen. She sat back down. That is what Ambassador Velcris tried to warn you about. Not that we are monsters, but that we are different in a way most species cannot understand. The news of New Sol reached every corner of the galaxy. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions for weeks. Some species called for restrictions on humanity. Others argued for understanding and cooperation. Ambassador Velcris stood before the Council once more, but this time, Captain Park Min-jun stood beside him. Honored Council, Velcris began. You ignored my warning, and the price was paid in blood. But I want to show you something else about humans. He pulled up footage from New Sol after the battle. It showed human medics treating wounded Krellian soldiers. It showed human engineers helping repair damaged Krellian ships. It showed Governor Kim personally meeting with every Krellian prisoner to ensure they were being treated well. This is the same species that fought so fiercely, Velcris said. The same people who would have fought to the death. But once the fighting ended, they showed compassion to their enemies. They could have taken revenge. They chose mercy. Captain Park spoke up. We fought because we had to protect our people. But we never wanted to fight. We wanted to join the galactic community, to learn from older species, to contribute to something bigger than ourselves. That dream has not changed. He looked around the chamber. We know we are different. We know we seem violent and stubborn to species that evolved differently. But we are also loyal, determined, and we never abandon our friends. Give us a chance to prove that we can be the best allies you have ever had. The Council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. Instead of restrictions, they proposed something new. The Terran Accord. It was a treaty unlike any other in galactic history. It recognized that humans were fundamentally different from most species. With different instincts and different ways of thinking, it established protocols for interaction, education programs to help other species understand humans, and clear rules about what would trigger human defensive responses. But most importantly, it granted humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and protections that implied. Governor Kim stood beside a monument in the center of New Seoul. It was a simple structure, built from rubble from the destroyed buildings. On it were carved the names of every person who died in the battle, both human and Krellian. The inscription read in multiple languages. Here we learned that peace requires understanding, not assumption. We honor those who died so that others might learn. Lee Jun-ho stood beside her, his old rifle now truly retired and displayed in the Colony Museum. "Do you think they will remember?" he asked. "I think they will try," Kim said. "And trying is enough." Across the galaxy, the impact of New Seoul spread in unexpected ways. Human volunteers began working with other species, teaching them about human culture and learning about theirs. Human diplomats worked alongside leaders like Ambassador Velcris to bridge understanding. And perhaps most surprisingly, Commander Zathon retired from military service and became one of the Krellian Empire's leading experts on human psychology. He taught other Krellians about the species that had defeated him, not with bitterness, but with respect. "They are not our enemies," he told his students. "They are our teachers. They taught us that strength without understanding is just waiting for something you cannot comprehend to prove you wrong." 1 year after the battle, a new species applied for Galactic Council membership. They came from a death world similar to Earth, with predator evolution and strong pack-bonding instincts. The Council was nervous, but this time, when Ambassador Velcris stood to speak, he was not alone. Captain Park stood beside him, along with Governor Kim and several other humans. "We know what it is like to be misunderstood," Park said to the Council. "We know what it is like to be feared for being different. Let us help you understand this new species. Let us be the bridge." "Lows, Lows," the Council agreed. In his quarters, Velcris met with Park privately after the session. "You know," the old ambassador said, "when I first warned the Council about humanity, I was afraid of what might happen." "Were you afraid we would be violent?" Park asked. "No," Velcris said with a slight smile. "I was afraid you would be forced to show your violence, and that it would make the galaxy fear you forever. I am glad I was wrong. We are still learning," Park admitted. "We make mistakes. We are stubborn, and sometimes too quick to fight. But we are trying. That is all anyone can ask," Velcris said. "You know, there is an old Thaleen saying, 'The strongest blade can also be the gentlest tool, if wielded with wisdom.' I think that applies to humanity." Park smiled. "We have a saying too, 'Speak softly and carry a big stick.' I think we are learning the speaking softly part." "Keep learning," Velcris said, "because the galaxy needs what you offer. Not just your strength or your determination, but your capacity to care about those different from you. Your willingness to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Your stubborn hope that the future can be better." As Park left, Velcris looked out at the stars. The galaxy was changing. Species that had never understood each other were learning to communicate. Fear was slowly giving way to understanding. And at the center of it all were the humans. The species that everyone had tried to warn the galaxy about. The warning had been right. In its way, humans were dangerous. They were unpredictable. They were capable of violence that shocked more peaceful species, but they were also capable of compassion that inspired, loyalty that endured, and hope that refused to die no matter how dark things became. The Krellians had paid a price to learn that lesson. But in paying it, they had helped the entire galaxy understand something important. Humanity was not a threat to be feared or a problem to be solved. They were a new voice in an old conversation, bringing perspectives and strengths that the galaxy had never seen before. And the galaxy was better for having them. On New Seoul, children played in streets that had been rebuilt after the battle. They played with human children and Krellian children, whose families had stayed behind to help with reconstruction. They did not remember the fighting. They only knew that different species could live together and be friends. Governor Kim watched them play and smiled. This was what they had fought for. Not victory, but the chance for the next generation to grow up in a galaxy where being different was understood and accepted. Ambassador Velcris had tried to warn the galaxy about humanity, and he had been right, but the warning was incomplete. Yes, humans were dangerous when threatened. Yes, they would fight with terrifying determination when their families were at risk. Yes, they were different from any species the galaxy had encountered before, but they were also the species that would run into burning buildings to save strangers, that would travel across the galaxy to help people they had never met, that would extend mercy to defeated enemies, and build friendships across impossible divides. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and the lesson was this: never ignore a warning about something you do not understand, but also never assume that being dangerous means being evil, or that being different means being wrong. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the galaxy is also the most loyal friend you could ever have. You just have to be willing to understand them.